Coming up on The World Today, the US and China are at it again, only this time it's over the origin of the coronavirus. France apologizes and seeks Rwanda's forgiveness over its role in the country's genocide. Plus, the UN says Israel may have committed war crimes for sending airstrikes to Gaza. A warm welcome to our viewers here in Nigeria and around the world. Thank you for joining us. I'm Amarachi Ubani in Lagos. China and the United States are at it again over the origins of the coronavirus. And on Wednesday, U.S. President Joe Biden had said that U.S. intelligence agencies were divided about whether COVID-19 emerged from human contact with an infected animal or from a laboratory incident. China has responded, saying the U.S. has no interest in conducting a scientific study of the origins of COVID-19 and attempts to politicize the investigation. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijiang said the U.S. aims to use the pandemic to pursue stigmatization, political manipulation, and blame shifting. As the World Health Organization prepares to begin a second phase of studies into the origins of COVID-19, China has been under pressure to give investigators more access amid allegations that SARS-CoV-2 leaked from a laboratory specializing in coronavirus research in the city of Wuhan. So if those pictures could come up, we'll have the pictures of Wuhan, the laboratory in Wuhan where the coronavirus reportedly broke out from. China wants the U.S. to conduct its own private investigation into the origins and for the government to make public its findings on the source of the pandemic to end the dispute. China continues to deny that this lab, the Wuhan Institute of Virology, was working on anything remotely connected to the coronavirus and insists that the other countries are trying to distract from their own failures to contain the virus. A joint China WHO study published in March said that it was highly improbable that SARS-CoV-2 leaked from the lab and that it most likely spread from bats to humans via an as yet unidentified intermediary species. China has also continued to point to the possibility that COVID-19 originated in another country and entered via infected frozen food or through Southeast Asian wildlife trade networks. So we're getting more responses from China as the embassy in the United States says politicizing the origin and tracing of COVID-19, a matter of science, will not only make it hard to find the origin of the virus, but also give free rein to the political virus, it says, and seriously hamper international cooperation on fighting the pandemic. The embassy's statement, as you may have already guessed, it came after President Joe Biden ordered closer review of the origin of the coronavirus, asking the intelligence community to probe into how and where COVID-19 emerged. An embassy spokesperson said, on the origin tracing of COVID-19, we have been calling for international cooperation on the basis of respecting facts and science with a view to better coping with unexpected epidemics in the future. Out of a sense of responsibility towards the health of mankind, we support a comprehensive study of all early cases of COVID-19 found worldwide and a thorough investigation into some secretive bases and biological laboratories all over the world. Let's talk to our Washington correspondent, Maria Birch, who joins us now. Maria, great to see you. Why is the Biden administration revisiting the topic of the origin of coronavirus despite investigations by the World Health Organization and its reports about it?
The Biden administration is giving
We'll have Maria on a little later. Of the world, though. India, for instance, there are reports that 20 people may have been given 2 different doses of coronavirus jabs for their second, beg your pardon, the first and the second doses by mistake. Now, officials say that they were given a shot of COVID Shield, that's the AstraZeneca vaccine, in early April, but then got the locally developed Covaxin as part of the second dose in May. Here's a global update.
The interesting thing about the story is that India has not allowed the mixing of vaccines, and studies going on around the world to see if different doses can be safely administered. But the government says that 20 people who received the mixed vaccines are healthy and have no side effects. And as COVID-19 cases continue to rise, people are flooding vaccine centers to receive the jab. The world's second most populous country this month recorded its highest monthly COVID-19 death toll since the pandemic started last year, accounting for just over a third of the overall total. France says its economy is on a strong recovery path, but most remain cautious. The comment was made by the finance minister, who has kept forecasts for 5% GDP. He says France will face a public deficit of over 9% this year, and that he counts on a strong growth to reduce the deficit quickly in the coming days. France began reopening last week following another COVID-19 lockdown. The total number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in the United States has surpassed 33.18 million, while the death toll above 592,000. The United States leads the world in the number of both confirmed COVID-19 cases and deaths. President Joe Biden has set a target of having 70% of adults vaccinated with at least one dose by July the 4th, the country's independence holiday. The current figure is almost 62%. Finally, Britain's Health Minister Matt Hancock has rejected allegations that he repeatedly lied during his response to the COVID-19 pandemic made by Dominic Cummings, the former top aide of Prime Minister Boris Johnson.
Thanks very much.
Cummings appeared at a parliamentary committee session on Wednesday, taking particular aim at Johnson and Hancock for their actions during the COVID-19 pandemic. With almost 128,000 deaths, the UK has the world's fifth highest official COVID-19 toll, far higher than the government's initial worst-case estimate of only 20,000.
So we told you about our lead story, right, about the U.S. and China sparring over the origins of COVID-19 and the U.S. Wanting the intelligence community to conduct its own investigation into the origins of the coronavirus, and China responding an ample amount of response, I should say, to these allegations by the United States and the calls for more investigations into the origins of the coronavirus. Our Washington correspondent Maria Bird joins us now to give us more on the responses from the Biden administration. Maria, why are they revisiting this topic on the origin of the coronavirus despite the investigations already conducted by the World Health Organization and the reports that have emerged from that?
You're exactly correct. And President Biden, who I think people were not expecting to come out, came out Wednesday and said there's going to be a 90-day review process. And so at this time, there has been speculation. And as you've heard before, when Dr. Fauci went to Congress and has had to obviously testify several times, many senators, especially Republican senators, have questioned the leak of the lab activity as it relates to the COVID-19 novel virus. And the questions around patient zero and the first patient to contract the coronavirus, having the medical records of that individual. We also know that it was in that lab. And so I think the question is, and as we look at some of the infectious disease doctors, Dr. Fauci, they're saying they don't know. There has never been a clear understanding of how the virus started and the origins of the virus. The U.S. has also been plagued with and dealt with several other types of viruses, when looking at SARS and MRSA. And those obviously were viruses that came out of animals. And so the question now is, how did COVID-19, especially as the U.S. has been one of the hardest hit by the virus?
Does beg the question, doesn't it? I mean, the point really is to find the connection from when the virus not just originated, but how it got on to human hosts. But now China is responding as expected. The country takes very unkindly these accusations against it. And you hear the responses from the government, from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, all denying these claims about the origin of the coronavirus in Wuhan because of the WHO report, and then asking the U.S. to conduct its own investigation. But President Biden has not said the United States will conduct its own investigations, but it's calling on the intelligence community to do so. So what are you hearing, from the administration about the purpose of what these findings will provide?
They're stating that in 90 days, as you said, the intelligence community, so it's not just the U.S., is being asked. And so they're going to be requesting medical records, obviously, of patient zero. They're going to be requesting information as it relates to the Wu-Tang lab and all of the individuals that were at that lab because they want to rule out that this virus was not leaked out of the lab and that it did not come from animals initially. And so I think because the question is, could a vaccine been created any earlier? Could there have been additional information to try to put a stop to the coronavirus a bit earlier? We all know it comes down to the financial impacts. This virus has dramatically impacted not only the global economy, but specifically, I think the U.S. is concerned about the U.S. economy. And so those are questions. And this is going to add to some of the tension that existed during the Trump administration between the U.S. and China. And so the real question is, how does President Biden plan to move forward and to, instead of creating greater division between the U.S. and China through this, but to create more of a collaborative and more of a friendly relationship moving forward?
Yeah, and just finally, before you go, Maria, President Joe Biden's plans to vaccinate more than half of Americans, in fact, almost every American, by the month of July, by July 4th, Independence Day. Where is the administration now with its campaign?
The administration is well on its way to 50% of the individuals being vaccinated. At least 50% have received one vaccine of Americans in the U.S. that are eligible. And so they're expecting that they would have been fully vaccinated by the time that July 4th holiday is in session. And we're just a few weeks away from that, about 6 weeks away from that. But they're expecting that this will be something that the president will be able to reach, especially now knowing that many of the teenagers are beginning to be vaccinated and the availability of the vaccine at this time. The real question is the campaign for individuals in the U.S. that do not believe in the vaccine and are hesitant to receive the vaccine. That's going to be the president's greatest challenge, especially once he reaches the 50% mark.
I think you find people like that all over the world. Well, Maria, thanks again for speaking with us.
Thank you for having me.
We told you about French President Emmanuel Macron's not just apologizing to Rwandans for France's role in the genocide of 1994, but the president also seeking forgiveness. And staying with apologies, this time in Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is making some apologies of his own for the internment of Italian Canadians during World War II. In a speech to the House of Commons in Ottawa, Mr. Trudeau said the way that Italian Canadians were treated by the government was unacceptable. Reports say more than 600 people of Italian heritage were forced into internment camps after Italian dictator Benito Mussolini entered the war in 1940, allying with Nazi Germany. Some stayed there for months or years, according to Canada's broadcast media. But Prime Minister Trudeau says Prime Minister Trudeau not only made his apology in French so that the Canadian people could understand, but also in Italian, saying to the men and women who were taken to prisoner of war camps or jail without charge, people who are no longer with us, to hear this apology, we are sorry. A Mexican mayoral candidate on Tuesday was the latest to be killed in a spate of political assassinations ahead of Mexico's June 6 legislative elections. Alma Barragan, who was running for mayor of Moroleon, was shot dead, becoming the 34th candidate to be killed in the election season. Friends and family mourned her on Wednesday and called for an end to the violence. Barragan's party, Citizen Movement, has lost 3 candidates already to killings during the election season. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador attributed the violence to organized crime. On Wednesday, a mayoral candidate for Acapulco was injured during an assassination attempt. And the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, says that Israel's deadly strikes on Gaza may constitute war crimes, so that the Hamas Islamist group had also violated international humanitarian law by firing rockets into Israel. Ms. Bachelet said her office had verified the deaths of 270 Palestinians in Gaza, the West Bank, and also in East Jerusalem, including 68 children during violence this month. Many were killed in Hamas-controlled Gaza, where Israel fought militants for 11 days, ending in a ceasefire on Friday. The container ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal in March was struggling to steer because of its high speed and the side of its rudder, and could have chosen not to enter the waterway in bad weather, so says the canal's authority head. Comments by Chairman Osama Rabi come amid a dispute over compensation with the owner and insurers of the Ever Given container ship, which is detained by court order in the canal nearly 2 months after it was dislodged. The Ever Given became jammed across the canal in high winds on March 23rd, halting traffic in both directions and disrupting global trade. A legal team for Japanese owner Shoei Kisen disputes the vessel's intention and the compensation claim, and has said that the SCA was at fault for allowing the vessel to enter and not providing tugs. Rabi said the captain could have held the ship back. Well, tens of thousands of people have been evacuated from the city of Goma in the Democratic Republic of Congo over fears of another volcanic eruption. Local authorities say Mount Nyiragongo could erupt once again, with little warning this time. Due to this threat, the United Nations says it will relocate half of its workers from Goma.
The United Nations says over 20,000 people are homeless and 40 still missing in the aftermath of Saturday evening's volcanic eruption. The eruption sent rivers of lava towards Goma, killing at least 31 people and destroying more than 3,000 homes. The lava stopped just 300 meters short of Goma Airport, the main hub for aid operations in the east of Congo. However, the UN says it will temporarily relocate around 250 non-essential staff and around 1,500 of their dependents to the city of Bukavu, around 50 kilometers further south.
We have a large presence of United Nations agencies. We have more than 2,500 people in the city of Goma, and therefore it is our obligation to our staff and to the families of our staff to distinguish those which are essential, critical for emergency response and emergency response coordination of what are not. In any case, we are not going to work in these conditions, so we are in the process of relocating the personnel to help them find safety conditions for a period until the volcanic event can be declared over.
The UN Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs also says that ash cloud caused by the eruption has closed down airports in Goma and Bukavu and is likely to cause respiratory diseases. People who fled their homes have lost valuable possessions, including motorcycles that were either consumed by the lava flow or looted. More than 200 small and medium earthquakes have since caused cracks in buildings and streets in Goma, just 15 kilometers from Nyiragongo. No deaths have so far been reported, but the cracks have caused panic among residents unsure if the danger has passed.
Personally, it scares me seeing this crack. I am afraid because I have never seen anything like this. Those who saw the 2002 eruption told us that where a crack passes can be catastrophic. Now, when you see a crack after a recent eruption, you're worried that you're in danger. It gives me such a phobia just thinking about going to Bukavu.
The UN says a 1.7-kilometer river of lava that blocked the main road north from Goma is still too hot to be removed, preventing trade and aid deliveries to one of the most food-insecure places in Africa. But the government says some work has begun on restoring the road.
And at least 10 million people have been affected by strong winds and downpours brought by the powerful tropical cyclone Yaas, which made landfall on India's eastern coast on Wednesday. The cyclone swept the coastal areas with a wind speed of 130 to 140 kilometers per hour, damaging around 300,000 houses in some coastal towns, as a number of districts were flooded. A total of 1.5 million people were evacuated, and the local government built 14,000 temporary shelters providing necessities including rice and water to the affected people. A cyclone has completed its landfall now and is likely to move northwestwards, gradually weakening into a cyclonic storm during the next 6 hours. A convertible Rolls-Royce with a back deck that opens up to reveal cocktail tables, fridges for champagne, and the parasol matching the vehicle's baby blue color scheme is now a reality, if that is your thing. But it's only for one ultra-wealthy individual. The boat tail car, so-called because of its rear, is shaped like a J-class racing yacht. It was hand-built over 4 years, according to the detailed specification of an unnamed client of the elite automaker. The boat tail's price tag is also not being made public, nor is the name of the buyer. While the high net worth clients have long had the option of having their Rolls-Royce cars customized with a preferred upholstery or gadgets, this car is different in that nothing in it is standard. Did you say picnic? That sounds more like a luxury picnic. Thanks for watching The World Today. I'm Amarachi.